ABCnews.com/free.
A new study suggesting that checking a person's blood pressure incorrectly can lead to a wrong diagnosis of hypertension.
For the study, blood pressure readings were taken one of three ways: with the arm resting in the lap, dangling on the side, or on a table with the arm level with the heart. That last way is the proper way to take your blood pressure. The other two ways, sometimes common at doctors' offices, led to higher number readings, and that could result in a misdiagnosis.
On blood pressure, ABC's Sherry Preston. A shift in naming strategy from General Motors.
At the company's Investor Day presentation, General Motors now says they're walking away from the Ultium branding that's been affixed to their electric vehicle battery and battery technology since 2019. But the batteries and the tech itself will remain. It comes as GM reports 60% year-over-year growth for its EVs in the third quarter. The company reiterated its goal to sell 200,000 electric cars and trucks by the end of the year, down from its initial goal of 300,000. Mike Dubusky, ABC News.
Panera has settled a wrongful death lawsuit over its charged lemonade. Sarah Katz suffered a heart attack after drinking it. Lawsuit claimed it had nearly 4 times the caffeine of Red Bull, and that Katz had a heart condition and wasn't made aware of the caffeine content. Panera has discontinued the drink. Two American pioneers of artificial intelligence, John Hopfield, Gregory Hinton, won the Nobel Prize in Physics. Chuck Sievertson, ABC.
You can live out your MasterChef dreams when you find a professional on Angie to tackle your dream kitchen remodel. Connect with skilled professionals to get all your home projects done well. Inside to outside, repairs to renovations. Get started on the Angie app or visit Angie.com today. You can do this when you Angie that.
News Talk 610 AM and 102.1 FM. KBNU.
I'm Bill Walter, KBNU News. News is brought to you by Logan Extermination. Utah Governor Spencer Cox kicked off the One Utah Summit, that is, in southern Utah on Monday, speaking to citizens throughout the state. The governor answered questions from rural community leaders during Direct Link, a 1-hour program broadcast on radio stations throughout the state, including KBNU. Cox began the show discussing the Stand for Our Land initiative. He said the case, now headed to the U.S. Supreme Court, has been in the works for decades.
So right now, about 2/3 of the land, almost 70% of the land, is controlled by the federal government. Now, whatever you think about the federal government, whether they're the best thing or the worst thing, I hope we can all agree that that's a big chunk of our state. And even the most ardent defenders of the federal government recognize that they're doing a poor job in many areas of managing that land. They've gotten way behind in funding for some of these pieces.
Utah has filed the lawsuit asking the Supreme Court to address whether the federal government can simply hold unappropriated lands within a state indefinitely. The unappropriated land in question is approximately 18.5 million acres, or 34% of land in Utah controlled by the Bureau of Land Management. Now, toward the end of the 1-hour show Monday evening, the governor was joined by U.S. Senator Mike Lee, who said he wished the federal government ran as efficiently as the state of Utah runs.
I think we're going to have an opportunity to do that in the coming Congress. If Republicans get the majority, I'm scheduled to become the chairman of the Energy and Natural Resources Committee in the Senate, which will have a role to play, especially on the public lands front, but also on the energy production front on these issues.
The fall One Utah Summit has a history of convening leaders and decision makers who influence the economic viability of rural Utah. Hosted in Cedar City on Southern Utah University's campus, the summit provides a platform where partners discuss topics impacting rural Utah, along with a day focused on strengthening leadership skills. Crumble Cookies announced Sunday the company has plans to open stores in Australia after an unofficial cookie debacle occurred in Sydney. The cookie company that started in Logan said in a press release that Crumble is thrilled to expand to the land down under and started an official Crumble Australia Instagram account to mark the occasion. Details on specific locations and dates were not released. The announcement comes a week after some Australian Crumble fans flew to the U.S., bought hundreds of cookies, imported them to Australia, then resold them at a pop-up shop in Sydney. The cookies, that is, sold for a whopping $17.50 in Australian dollars, comes out to about $12 in the U.S. The situation went viral on TikTok, with dozens of people in the days following posting reviews of the cookies, some claiming the stunt was illegal, others praising the hustle of the organizations. After the event went viral, Crumble Cookies said in a statement, while the pop-up in Australia was not sponsored by Crumble, they love seeing excitement for Crumble around the world. And a Mapleton Elementary crossing guard was hospitalized after a driver failed to see her with her stop sign elevated above her head. The driver was traveling east at 8:45 Monday morning in Mapleton when they failed to see the crossing guard in her marked crosswalk. As the driver passed through the intersection, the right side mirror hit the crossing guard, knocking her over onto the pavement. The driver's vision was reportedly obscured by direct sunlight and a dirty windshield. No other people were in the crosswalk at that time. The crossing guard was evaluated and transported to the hospital by the Mapleton City Fire Department. She suffered a broken elbow and ankle that will require surgery. KBNU weather brought to you by Cardall's Insulation. If your home was built before 1980, you should consider updating your insulation. Today's insulation is much better than what you'll find in older homes. For a warmer, quieter home this winter, call 755-5012. Quiet describes our forecast. Clear to partly cloudy tonight, low in the upper 40s, and then sunny days continuing, and temperatures in the low 80s. Get more news at CashValleyDaily.com.
Even though the weather's grown colder, you still have time to have your fruit trees pruned. Logan Extermination says your trees need to be trimmed back in order to achieve success next year. And this is the first step to a bountiful harvest. However, you could do more bad than good if you don't know what you're doing. Save the headache and call Logan Extermination today and get a jump on tree pruning. Prices will vary depending on your needs. Logan Extermination, 752-8450.
News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
Utah's at a crossroads. The surging economy of the last decade is not today's reality. Cache Valley is feeling the effects of rising housing costs, stagnant wages, and skyrocketing energy prices. This is not acceptable, and I know we can do better. I'm Jason Thompson, and as a successful business owner, proven job creator, and experienced city mayor, I know what it takes to ensure that Utah is heading in the right direction. But I can't do it alone. I need your vote this November. At electjasonthompson.com, learn how together we can keep Utah heading in the right direction.
Paid for by the Committee to elect Jason Thompson.
Hi, this is Chris Wilson at Wilson Motor Company. It's time for our fall clearance sales event. We have a great selection of over 130 new Fords and over 60 Nissans that need to go. All 24 models have closeout pricing. We have rebates up to $9,000 and rates as low as 0% for 72 months. Or we have over 125 pre-owned vehicles to choose from. Now is a great time to buy a new or pre-owned vehicle. Check out our inventory online at wilsonmotor.com. Hurry in, our fall clearance sales event ends soon.
KVNU's For the People with Jason Williams and Bill Walter.
And it is Utah known as the fraud capital of the world. Not because we have more people committing fraud, but because we have so many people falling for it.
Going beneath the headlines and connecting you to the newsmakers.
The radio is a great way to get the word out to a lot of people in an emergency. So we thank you for your help and being a partner with us.
For the People on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM, 102.1 FM, online at 610kvnu.com and on the KVNU mobile app.
Welcome to KVN News for the People. It is Tuesday, October 8th. Thank you for joining us here on the show today. Special guest joining us later on in the hour, this hour and next. We'll speak with Nibley City Mayor Larry Jacobsen about growth and planning for it in Nibley City. This is an interview triggered by a really interesting email I got from a listener who sent this in just after the show. And also, Anna, appreciate you being a listener. Anna says she's been a long-time listener, and she can't remember if we've done this already. We haven't done it in quite some time, but she said she had a lot of good to say about living in Nibley City. She said that the city does some amazing stuff as far as events, including she cited fitness and family health events that the city sponsors in the park and various places where people can get out for morning exercise and also bring the whole family for an early evening event. She said the city is doing a great job of being a fun city to live in, but she said, you know, I everywhere I go, there's a road under construction, or there's a field that used to be, a hay field or a grass pasture with livestock in it that's now, apartment buildings or townhomes or single-family homes and subdivisions. And she said, I'm curious how much Nibley has grown in the last few years, and also how the city is absorbing all of that growth. So I reached out to Nibley City, and Mayor Larry Jacobsen will join us at 4:40 this hour. And then kicking off hour 2 of today's show, trying to get to every candidate again here. We got to every candidate in the primary. I can't believe we did it. There were so many candidates, and that's not a complaint. This is fun for me, obviously, or I wouldn't be here every day. And candidates are just, a good way to, candidate spotlights are a good way to remind everyone there's an election afoot. But I don't remember a year in which it was such a challenge. We did it in the primary. We can do it again here in October because now that the primary is come and gone, we have fewer candidates to get to. So we're going to be trying to get to them all, including the races that I guarantee some of you have forgotten are going to be on your ballot, which you can take a look at right now at vote.utah.gov or via the cashcounty.org/elections page. You can see a sample ballot there and see what's going to be on your ballot. And the ballots start mailing out next week. Also, voter registration deadline is October 25th. Don't put it off till the end like I do. In fact, if you want to get your ballot early, drop boxes are unlocked when early voting starts. And you can drop it in a drop box or drop it in the mail early and not forget to vote. But the later you wait to check your registration or register for the first time or update your registration, the later you're going to get that ballot, increasing the odds, like it is with me, of you forgetting to vote. So don't do that. Go to vote.utah.gov right now. Look at the sample ballot. Double check your registration, especially if you haven't voted in a couple of elections. Make sure you're still registered. Make sure all your information, address especially, is correct. And also, while you're there, if you're interested, you can mark your ballot or your your registration information as private if you're concerned about that. These voter rolls are sold to third parties, usually political parties, but some advertisers buy them as well. And so if you don't want your address out there, you can mark your ballot or your registration as private here in Utah. And that is an option at vote.utah.gov. And we'll be speaking with Cache County School Board candidate Brian Chambers in hour 2. So we haven't spent a lot of time on the school board races. They're contentious in some areas of the state and have become, political over social culture war issues like book banning and teachers who have displayed pride flags. And so the politics, unfortunately, has been a contagion in those races as well. Here in northern Utah, they're not as contentious, and the debate has been more about growth in the schools, planning for that growth, new schools. We know we're going to need them, but conversations about where they might go are going to be popping up in the next couple of years. So the school board races are important, and don't forget they are going to be on your ballot. So Brian Chambers, candidate for Cache County School Board, will join us at the start of hour 2. Nibley City Mayor Larry Jacobsen will join us later on this hour. And I hadn't planned to open with this, but Bill had that news story during the break there about a school crossing guard here in Utah who was struck by a driver. And thankfully, the school crossing guard is going to be okay, although medical attention was needed because of the high speed, it sounds like, of the driver. The mirror of the vehicle clipping the school crossing guard. Do you know how close you have to be driving to someone to hit a school crossing guard? Now, in the driver's defense, the news story said this is someone's vision was obstructed for whatever. I don't know if that means there was junk all over the dashboard of the vehicle or the sun was in the driver's eyes or whatever it might be. But this is why you go slow, very slow in school zones. The posted speed limit in a school zone is of course 20. But it doesn't hurt to be going slower than that. Even if the driver's behind you, get a little irritated. Why take the risk, right? It's just it's mind-blowing. This is also a situation where most of these school crossing guards are volunteers. Many of them are parents of kids who have kids in Cache and Logan school districts. Don't put them at risk. There is nothing that is worth the possibility of running over a crossing guard or a child because if the crossing guard was in the crosswalk, this is what got me about that story. If the crossing guard was in the crosswalk with a sign over their head that said stop, and a driver didn't see that, there is no way a driver would have seen the children that could have been walking through that crosswalk at the same time. And that is, yeah. So, but I looked into this. I was curious to see if any data had been collected on, school crossing guards in general. And yes, they had actually done. Now, they haven't done this nationwide in every school district, but they did look at a sampling, kind of like pollsters do, where they do a sample of voters and come up with a poll of, guessing at where everyone's at. They did sort of the same thing here. They looked at New Jersey school districts, California school districts, Nevada school districts, and Idaho school districts. And they collected that data. And what they found is that on average, every year, 892 crossing guards have an incident with a vehicle. Now there are thousands of crossing guards across the nation. But they looked at 4 states and found that in those 4 states, 892 crossing guards have been struck by a vehicle in a single school year. Extrapolating that out, Nevada, for example, that year, this was 2023, had 5,390 crossing guards total statewide. And so extrapolating that out, about 20% of them had been struck by or nearly struck by a vehicle, and it was reported. And that doesn't include those that aren't reported, which the National Highway Traffic Safety Department believes is likely the case, that these are very underreported. Folks, we've got to drive smarter. By the way, for those not aware, in Utah, speeding in a school zone. Now, I know there are a lot of theories out there about speeding. You've heard them probably from your uncle at Thanksgiving, or maybe even your own parents, maybe your friends at school, maybe your coworkers. We've all heard it. They'll never pull you over for anything under, 5 miles over or under. That doesn't apply in a school zone. In a school zone, you will be pulled over for any amount of excess speed above the posted limit, which again is usually 20 miles per hour. That's why they put those big flashing lights up you can't miss unless you're staring at your phone. And that's something that's happened here in Utah recently as well, just last year. And that almost killed a crossing guard and a child on a bike. Someone looking at their phone didn't see the flashing lights and the lowered speed limit for the school zone, didn't see the crossing guard and the child about to step into the street. Luckily, the crossing guard saw them coming, and someone snapped that driver's license plate, and a police report was filed, and they tracked them down. And the fine for speeding in a school zone, $260. But depending on the situation, any judge in any court based on state law has the option to take that up to between $900 and $1,000. That is a judge's discretion. So $260 is the in statute stated fine for speeding in a school zone. This also applies to passing a school bus with its stop sign out. But a recent bill passed in 2021 here in Utah gave judges the discretion in some situations where there are, ludicrous circumstances and the driver really was being negligent. A judge can actually take that $260 fine all the way up to $900 to $1,000. And that's if you don't hit anyone. So take a breath, folks. We'll be back right after this.
Hey Cache Valley, this is Kyla from your County Clerk's Office Elections Division with a quick reminder. Ballots for the 2024 general election will be mailed to all active registered voters the week of October 15th. And when you get your ballot, you've got options. You can return it by mail. Just be sure it's postmarked by November 4th or drop it off at one of our 21 convenient drop boxes across the county. Still not registered or you've recently moved? No problem. Go to vote.utah.gov and update your registration. Your vote is your voice, Cache Valley. Let's make it count.
I'm Larry Gelwigs, the getaway guru for Morris Columbus Travel and Princess Cruises with the biggest cruise promotion of the year, including free open bar, free Wi-Fi, and free prepaid gratuities. Sail with Princess Cruises and get free. And for the best travel deals on the planet, give us a call at Morris Columbus Travel.
Come on and get away, Morris Columbus.
A big thank you from Spring Hill Suites by Marriott Logan. We're the proud silver winner for hotels in the 2024 Best of Northern Utah. We owe it all to our fantastic community.
Hi, it's Olivia Munn with my shelter pets, Frankie and Chance, reminding you that when you adopt a shelter pet, you discover all the things that make them unique. Adopt pure love at theshelterpetproject.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council, the Humane Society of the United States, and Maddie's Fund.
The Above and Beyond Salute.
Good morning, this is Beverly.
Beverly Dunford, my name is Will Feelright. Years ago, you helped put together a carpool for many who are suffering from arthritis and other pains to be able to go to different hot springs in the area to get some pain relief.
I started that carpool back in 2011, and we still go.
Well, we've got a $40 gift card for you to Firehouse Subs as a way of just telling you thanks for what you did.
Oh, wow. Wow, thank you.
The Above and Beyond Salute on News Talk KVNU.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Outgoing at this point, just a few months left in his term, his only term as United States Senator Mitt Romney has been under pressure to speak up and endorse or something in the United States presidential race. The reason for that is, of course, is a lot of moderate Republicans have endorsed Harris in this race and saying, that they can't support their own party's nominee. There are a handful of them, including one who was just appointed, Jeff Flake, Ben Sasse, just appointed to the board, chair of the board of the World Trade Center of Utah. Apparently he moved to Utah after retiring from the Senate. So some high-profile Republican officials, former elected officials, have endorsed Harris in the race, and that understandably has gotten news. So Mitt Romney, having in the past been very vocal about his dislike for Trump, and he voted in that second impeachment trial to impeach. Romney has decided not to run for re-election, saying that he's too old, that it's time for younger people, fresh blood, as he put it, to step in. And also, if you read McKay Coppin's book on Romney, you know that Romney is also absolutely disgusted with the current state of our politics. He not a fan of the things he's learned about how the United States Senate and Congress function in his one term. So, again, under pressure to endorse, and he made it clear today he isn't going to. He was speaking at a business summit, a group of small business owners, entrepreneurs at something called Kiln in Lehigh. I have no idea what that is. It looks fancy, though, from the photos. And they were generally talking about the future of Utah when it comes to small business, when it comes to economic policy, things like that, trade as well. Well, he was there. The media was there, and they cornered Romney and said, do you plan to endorse? And for the first time, he let his plans be known, and he basically said no. He said that he doesn't plan to disappear entirely after his term ends, December 31st of this year. He said he would like to stay involved in the Republican Party and reform it. What he means by that, I have no idea. Specifically, he didn't elaborate. But he said that endorsing makes that hard. He said no matter who he chooses, it's going to hold him up if he endorses in what he sees as the future of the Republican Party. He said no matter how this election turns out, whether Trump wins, whether Harris wins, an endorsement locks me in, and I want the freedom to be able to reform this party. So that's where he stands on that. More interestingly, the same conversation, he was asked about the two candidates and some of the economic policy. Romney, of course, has made trying to do something about Social Security and its future and the $1 trillion a year U.S. is spending on interest on the debt. And Romney was asked, how does he see the future of all that, tax policy and more, in the, in light of the two proposed economic plans? And his answer, first I chuckled, and then I was sad because I realized he's right. He said, so again, he's asked, okay, you're not going to endorse. How do you feel about since this has been such a focus for you as a United States Senator, how do you feel about the competing tax policy and economic plans of both the Trump and Harris campaigns? And he basically said, I'm paraphrasing here, but barely. He basically says, what plans? He said, he scoffed at Trump's tariff proposal. He said no one should take that seriously. He scoffed at some of the promises Harris has been making and said nobody should take that seriously. He basically said both candidates are running campaigns that are light on policy, and that doesn't say good things about the current state of our politics, if that works for either of them. And again, at first I chuckled because my first reaction was, nice dodge, Mitt. But, way to not get yourself in some headlines there by saying, it's like when someone says, oh, both sides are mad at me, I must be doing something right. No, it might be that you're actually being awful, and both sides are mad at you for good reason. But then for a second I paused and realized how sad that he's correct. And that is sad. I mean, this isn't a policy-oriented, they're both promising policies, both presidential candidates. They're both talking about what they're calling policies. But yeah, the specifics are pretty light from both major parties' campaigns. And Romney said, so when asked again, how he felt about the economic policy, the tax policy of the two frontrunners in this race, the Republican and Democratic nominees for president, his response was, what tax policy? What economic policy? So Romney also reiterated that he does still see the biggest problem two biggest problems he sees facing the U.S. He says to keep our economy vibrant, the U.S. needs to spur growth, and that's going to require streamlining and fixing the immigration process. He said, building a wall, deporting everyone, not realistic. Congress is never going to fund that. It's a waste of everybody's time to think about that. He said what we should be talking about is how we can fix the system so that those who want to come here legally can, in a more rapid fashion, come here legally. We also need to do more security-wise, Romney said, to make sure if they do come here legally and commit a crime, that that's handled very quickly. And he said none of this is going to happen based on what both candidates are talking about. And then he also pointed out correctly that these are problems that the U.S. has really needed to do something about for decades. So it's not just these two candidates, Romney said. He said this goes back decades. But until we get serious about it, we're not going to be able to spur growth in our economy. And that's going to make doing anything about, shoring up Social Security, paying down the national debt. He said to do either of those things, we need growth. And growth is going to require a streamlined immigration process. And nobody's even talking about fixing the current system. It was a pretty stark, pretty grumpy Mitt Romney, I guess is the way to put it. If you'd like to read or even watch his full speech and clips from these interviews, they've been posted to a couple of different channels, both on Facebook and YouTube, and I've linked to both on our own Facebook page. So, on the other side of the news, Larry Jacobsen, mayor of Nibley City, joins us to answer a listener's question. Listener said, I love living in Nibley City. They do a lot of fun stuff, including a lot of health and fitness stuff for families. But I'm seeing all this growth everywhere. There is a new apartment building, a new townhome, a new set of single-family homes. And I'm wondering what the city's doing to grapple with all this growth, and also how much has the city grown in the last few years. I thought that was a great question. We reached out, and Mayor Jacobsen agreed to join us. We'll get to that right after this look at the news with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News brought to you by Roof Rescue. Utah Hockey Club management insists it's an expansion team, and as far as the NHL is concerned and the way records will be kept, that's true. But in a more practical sense, Utah is a relocated franchise. It's mostly the same team that took the ice last season as the Arizona Coyotes, with the same head coach and the same general manager. Utah opens its first season in Salt Lake City tonight against the Chicago Blackhawks. If previous relocated franchises are a guide, Utah also fits the definition because it could be on the verge of becoming an annual playoff contender. Given its core of young players, history has been kind to other teams that have changed cities, with many clubs winning right away and even capturing championships not long after arriving in their new homes. We will have that first regular season game of the Utah Hockey Club tonight on the Fan, 106.9 FM and 1390 AM. And a canyoneer has died after accidentally falling between 150 and 200 feet in Zion National Park in southwest Utah. National Park Service officials say the 40-year-old man was rappelling through Heaps Canyon with three others Saturday evening when he fell to his death. His identity has not been released. Zion National Park and the Washington County Sheriff's Office are still investigating the exact cause of the man's death. However, the National Park Service confirmed on Sunday it was accidental. The other three canyoneers were rescued from the long and physically demanding canyon on Sunday by officials from the Utah Department of Public Safety. KVNU weather for tonight. Mostly clear skies is the forecast. Overnight low in the mid-40s. I'm not sure if we're going to see northern lights again tonight. They were viewed in some parts of northern Utah late last night. So we'll see. Sunny and lower 80s tomorrow. Same for Thursday. I want to congratulate Beverly Dunford, longtime massage therapist, our latest Above and Beyond Salute winner from Firehouse Subs. A citizen nominated Bev, saying she organized a carpool for seniors, ones that were suffering from arthritis and other pains, to travel to local hot springs. It started in 2011 and is still going strong. To say thanks, we gave her a $40 gift card to Firehouse Subs. Submit your nominations for the Above and Beyond Salute by visiting KBNUtalk.com. You can always get more news at CashValleyDaily.com.
ABC News, I'm Chuck Sievertson. By crowded highways and crowded flights, people are getting out of Florida ahead of another major hurricane whose center is less than 500 miles from Tampa, expected to hit Florida's west coast tomorrow. Hurricane Milton's gotten stronger again, top winds 165 miles an hour. Among preparations, this from Florida Governor Ron DeSantis.
This is probably the largest National Guard mobilization in advance of a storm in Florida history.
Thousands of troops. An Afghan citizen accused of plotting to kill Americans on Election Day on behalf of ISIS terrorists has been arrested, says the Justice Department. Donald Trump denies it. Vice President Harris ripping her Republican rival for, as reported in the veteran journalist Bob Woodward's new book, sending COVID tests to Russian President Putin. Mr. Trump making unfounded statements about migrants taking over Aurora, Colorado ahead of a rally Friday. This is ABC News.
Roof Rescue is your local roof specialist, dedicated to keeping your home safe and dry no matter the weather. Their team of experienced roofers is here to serve you, providing top-quality service at affordable prices. From minor repairs to complete roof replacements, they've got you covered. Remember, your roof is your first line of defense in protecting your family from the elements. So don't wait until the next storm to discover your roof problems. Call Roof Rescue today at 435-999-4268. They're your trusted local roofing experts, here to keep your home safe and dry. Roof Rescue, celebrating 10 years of providing watertight peace of mind.
From ABC News, Wall Street now. Stocks regained some ground thanks to falling oil prices. The Dow added 126 points, the S&P gained 55, and the Nasdaq soared 259 points. Both Brent and U.S. crude fell 4%. Chipmaker Nvidia also helped, rising 4%. Wall Street held firm even though markets around the world sank on swings in China. Beijing surprised investors when it didn't roll out another stimulus package to correct its struggling economy. Stocks tumbled 9.4% in Hong Kong for their worst day since the 2008 global financial crisis. McDonald's isn't loving its beef suppliers. The fast food giant is suing Tyson, JBS, Cargill, and National Beef Packing Company, alleging price fixing. PepsiCo is lowering its sales forecast for the year after seeing consumers push back on rising prices and smaller product sizes. Michelle Franzen, ABC News.
Are you a homeowner looking for peace of mind and affordable insurance coverage? This is Matt Robbins with Quality First Insurance, an Alera Group company. As an independent auto owner's insurance agency, we have access to multiple insurance carriers and will give you options. Our agents will work to ensure you get the policy that suits your needs. From protecting your personal belongings to dwelling coverage, Quality First has you covered. Call us today for a quote. 435-752-0101.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. Got an email from a listener this week. A listener lives in Nibley City and said she loves living in Nibley City. She cited some specific reasons, some of them just skimming the email here. There was quite a list. She had listed family fitness events that the city does, a morning fitness thing. She said we have, parties and festivals in the park all the time. And she said it's just a really inviting and friendly place to live, including my neighbors. But she said, driving around as I drive in and out of town each day, coming to and from work, she said, I see a lot of pastures that used to be, alfalfa fields or grass pasture fields full of livestock, or even just open space. And she says, I'm seeing a lot of apartments, and I'm seeing a lot of townhomes and a lot of new single-family homes as well. And she said, obviously, Cache Valley is growing, but I'm curious how a smaller city, not Logan City, obviously, but a smaller city like Nibley City is dealing with all of this. How much has the city grown over the last couple of years? And I thought that is a great question. So we reached out to our friends at Nibley City, and brave soul that he is, because this is a difficult question to try and answer. The mayor of Nibley City, Larry Jacobsen, agreed to join us today. And Mayor, appreciate you doing that. This is a very difficult question to answer, right? It's not. When someone says, how's the city planning and dealing with all this growth, you can't just say, well, fine, right? It's difficult.
It is, and well, thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
I appreciate the chance to talk to you about this, and look forward to our discussion today.
Same for me. This is, and we should point out too, this isn't unique to Nibley City at all, right?
Right. That's certainly not the case. Utah is the beehive state. We're industrious. We create jobs. We have a big focus on economic development, and certainly Cache Valley has lots of great things to offer to people, and that makes it difficult.
Sure.
For us to keep up with the people that want to live here.
And the reality is, for every city, that resources are always going to be finite. Space is always going to be finite. The money to deal with the traffic that comes with growth is always going to be finite, and the state legislature will make sure that's the case, right? But
yeah, good point.
But yet, as mayor and the city council working with you, you're still kind of tasked with figuring out how to thread that needle. How is it done?
That's a great question. I like to think of it as upstream thinking. So we need to be anticipating where Nibley City is heading.
Sure.
And also trying to define what we would like our city to become. And so that's really all about planning. And so that's planning for adequate water supply and distribution. It's planning for garbage collection. It's planning for the services that, one of the main reasons we have cities is to provide services that people can't provide for themselves. But another reason for having cities is so that we can have some local control over land use. Sure. And that's a huge part of planning in Nibley. And frankly, I feel like we have a great staff with a city manager and a city planner and a city engineer that we really do the best we can to get in front of the curve, to have this upstream thinking. And, we've been growing. All of Cache County, back to, sort of the premise of your question, all of Cache County has been growing. We have unemployment rates, even through sort of the darkest times of COVID, 1% to 2%, and
sure,
that means we have jobs for people. And not only does economic development mean providing jobs, it means providing workers for those jobs, and then we need to provide a place for those workers to live.
Sure, that is, I always tell people, Mayor, the choice is. We find more housing and find more places to put housing, or those of you with children right now, when they turn 18, you say, good luck, we'll come visit you in Boise. Those are literally the two futures we can choose here. It is, I have to say this, I'm not a Nibley City resident, but I do frequently drive through Nibley City for professional reasons. And I have to say this, Mayor, Nibley City, and I understand, this has been working with UDOT, this has been working with Logan City, with Hiram City, but Nibley City, I think, is the example, the bar in Cache Valley for managing the transportation side of growth. What's happened along 3200 South has been amazing to see, and that requires planning too, right?
Well, thank you for that compliment. That's one of the nicest things I've heard today. So I appreciate it. And
as someone who depends
by the way,
on
I'm happy with you. I'm happy with you calling me Larry if you're comfortable with that.
Sure,
it's up to you.
Yeah, okay. Whichever you prefer.
So again, transportation is one of those things that you just have to get in front of the trends, and where we can be pretty sure that things are going to happen. 3200 South, you specifically mentioned. The new alignment on 3200 South is such a huge improvement. To be completely frank about that was not only a Nibley City project. In fact, I was at a Council of Governments meeting yesterday, and we were given credit for the new alignment and the new light on 3200 South. And I said, well, thanks. I love to hear great things about Nibley City. However, that was a very, very much a cooperative effort. Logan City was involved. We appreciate what they did there. UDOT was a huge player, certainly in terms of financing that project. So I think that's one of the things we need to learn, as a city and in this valley is we're a bunch of dots on the map, and even if we connect the dots within our town, we really have to think about how we connect the dots to the rest of the valley.
Sure. That's why I like to use 3200 South as an example, because it does show that one city's good planning, and as you said, cooperative effort working with UDOT and Logan City, but one city's good planning can benefit everyone in the valley, because 3200 South is now a preferred route for people on east and west sides of the valley, south end of the valley, north end of the valley. And we see the same thing in Logan City with some of the things they've done on First West and other routes. We all benefit.
Yeah, you're mentioning another, what I think is a really cooperative effort. I think it was back in 2007, somewhere about there, the citizens of Cache Valley approved a 0.25% sales tax for local transportation projects to reduce congestion and buy rights of way and try to contribute valley-wide to, these transportation issues. And we're going through the mayors in the valley right now are going through the process. It's called the Council of Governments, where we prioritize and figure out where we should be putting money into the valley. It's not UDOT money. This is money that the citizens of Cache County willingly agreed to with this increased sales tax. But we try to prioritize, what are the valley-wide projects, the stuff that's gone on in Logan and North Logan and Hyde Park. Mostly, a lot of it is to provide alternatives to Main Street of Logan, because, it's a place where a lot of traffic funnels to. And so to provide these alternative routes. And Nibley City has been a part of that as well. The Cache Metropolitan Planning Organization has had 1200 West on its plan for more than 25 years, and that's been on the Nibley City Road plan too. And we've had a lot of help from the Council of Governments, this sales tax, to complete a road that will go from Hiram City, connect onto 10th West in Logan, and then obviously go all the way to the Cache Logan Airport. So again, another attempt to make our valley transportation-wise less one-dimensional and try to turn it into a two-dimensional problem or solution, I guess.
It's amazing to see, and it's amazing to see it coming together as planned. And again, it just stresses the importance of this long-term planning, or as you said, upstream planning, because it's coming downstream. We know the growth is coming. We know all the people are going to be here. We know it just, I think, is a great example of what can happen with that planning. And the planning doesn't come easy. I know. Do you have, Larry, any idea how much has Nibley City grown population-wise in the last few years?
Yeah, great question. I actually looked at the census data to make sure that my intuition or feelings, gut feel was accurate. And so 2010 to 2020, when we had census data, Nibley City grew by a factor of 1.35, and if you amortize that on a exponential growth each year, that's 3% per year during that 10-year period.
Wow.
Now, there's estimates on the Census Bureau for the time from 2020 to 2023, and it's a little more than 3 years, but it's close. We're right at about 4% per year during that estimate from the Census Bureau. And that's in line with what I would have predicted, 2 to 3 to 4% over the last 20, 30 years, and a little bit more right now.
Sure.
Because we have some housing projects that have been entitled in the last 5 years that are now actually getting built.
And it's coming together quickly. It's again, for listeners, Nibley City, I think, stands as an example, setting the bar for Cache Valley on the importance of planning long term, not just a couple of years, but 10, 15, even 20 years down the road. And it is also an example of a city surrounded by other cities, surrounded by roads controlled by UDOT. How many plates have to be spinning to make all this happen? It's fascinating to see. And last question here for you today, Larry. If you could wave a magic wand in your time as mayor and make any project be next on the list, and I realize no mayor gets to really decide that in any city, in any state, but if you could, what would be the next big project for Nibley City?
Oh, that's a great question. So in addition, you're saying in addition to the stuff that we're already doing and already working on, a brand new initiative.
If there was just one thing you could add and no one would argue.
Yep. Well, there's not any project that no one would argue.
Sure.
Right? You understand? I mean,
very fantastical situation here.
Right. So I've actually been educated by the residents of Nibley City. And I didn't come to this conclusion on my own, but in talking to people over and over and over, we hear an outcry for recreation space, especially indoor recreation space. So Nibley residents are very active, very recreation involved. We're a young community. We have a lot of kids that are involved in both competitive and recreational sports. And it's a long winter, as we all know.
Sure.
And there's a very, very large push for Nibley City to develop indoor recreational space. So we've actually we're going to spend about $140,000 of general fund money to do a feasibility study to understand that demand and understand how we would satisfy that demand and understand at what scale we might try to satisfy that demand. Do we pull in other communities, especially communities that are close to us, Wellsville, Hiram, Millville, Providence, Logan, to try to satisfy that demand? And we're very much in the early, it's not even a planning stage at this point, it's a feasibility stage. And when I said, obviously not everyone will always get behind any project, I kind of think the beauty of this one is there's no way that Nibley City can build this by saving up for it. You know, if we look at 30 years of saving money in order to build indoor rec space, the people that paid the taxes to save that money, their kids, they may not live in Nibley, and if they do, their kids are long gone, right?
Sure.
So we would, in order to do this, have to get the approval of the voters of Nibley in a direct democracy referendum to say, do you think Nibley City should obligate the citizens of Nibley to take out a bond and to build this rec space and provide the benefits, but also provide a way to pay for it for the next 20 or 30 years.
Put it to the voters, huh?
Exactly. And, like I say, while I think I was asked this question, I know I was, by the Nibley Parks and Rec Committee, which is a citizens committee that advocates for recreation stuff in our town, great group. They said, will you take out a bond to build us an indoor rec center? And I said, well, I won't, but I will try to facilitate the conversation that would let the citizens of Nibley and maybe even citizens of surrounding communities take part in answering that question.
It'd be interesting to see how that falls. And it is, as we've discussed here, this is another thing not unique to Nibley City. The need is there. The public demand is there. But the way to go forward is up in the air. Fascinating look behind the scenes here. And Mayor Larry Jacobsen, again, our guest here, Mayor of Nibley City, one of the fastest growing cities in the Valley, but one of the cities I think that has done the best job of planning for that growth, continuing to plan for the growth, and all of us benefiting from it, especially with the transportation planning and more. So it's really fun to go behind the scenes and see how all this was done and what the future might hold. And Mayor Larry Jacobsen, Larry, appreciate you taking the time to do this with us today.
Jason, you're very kind. Thanks for your thoughts and kind words, and let's do it again.
It's our pleasure. We'd be more than happy to check in again soon. We only have to wait a few months before there's something new to talk about in Nibley City. So,
yeah, that's probably an understatement.
Well, Mayor Larry Jacobsen, again, thank you for your time today, and we'll speak again soon.
Okay, thanks for talking to me.
Thank you.
See ya.
For our listeners, again, if you haven't had a chance to experience this, take a drive through Nibley City in the evening when traffic is slowed down, because getting there through Logan and all of that can be a challenge. But again, this is none of this unique to Nibley City. Every city in the valley is facing this in some way. Higher pressure in some areas than others. You know, of course, what Mendon's dealing with is different than what Nibley and Providence are dealing with. Millville City dealing with having to spend a lot of money building a new sewer system. Logan City, as the center of the valley, trying to manage their own needs, but also plan for the needs of the valley at large. This is, as Mayor Jacobsen said, a coordinated effort all around on so many people's parts, so many entities' parts. And I think what would get overwhelming for me, too, as an elected official, as a council member, as a mayor, as a member of a county board planning for this, it's never going to end. This will never stop. It might slow and relax a little bit. It might speed up and get a little more urgent sometimes. But the planning can never stop. The valley's growing fast. Utah's growing fast. And if we just let it happen without us planning for it, as Nibley City's doing, our options are a lot fewer. I hate to pick on them, but I always point at Syracuse. If you want to see an area in Utah where growth just happened with very little planning for the future, apparently no communication between cities, with the county completely oblivious to what was happening, go drive through Syracuse. It is absolutely impossible to go east to west, north or south, off of I-15 through that area. And one of the biggest reasons is that nobody was talking to anyone else. No one was planning together. It's really great to see the opposite of that happening here in Cache Valley. And again, Nibley City, I think, is one of the shining examples of that. So thanks again to Nibley City Mayor Larry Jacobsen for joining us. Thank you to Anna for sending the email in that gave us the idea to reach out to the mayor and have that conversation today. And I hope you'll all stick around. We'll start hour 2 with a second guest for the show today, Cache County School Board candidate Brian Chambers, joining us right after this here on KVNU Logan.
News and talk is right here on your radio. Breaking news and stimulating talk. KVNU Logan, 610 AM and 102.1 FM.